You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
I guess we'll just do a regular intro.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold open.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Suit Podcast. I'm Beau Oliver, joined here today with Aaron, the Nerd Suit Monkey, and Teddy, and we are here to talk about Dune. Spoiler discussion just came out this weekend. It's been killing it at the box office. Audiences really seem to love it. And yeah, we're here to talk about it. It's a dense-ass movie with a complicated plot, so there's a lot to talk about. So, Aaron, Teddy, how are you, and how did you like the movie?
You know, dense was a good way to put it, because...
You like that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Because how long that first part is... He has an uphill battle with this movie to start because of how much he has to put into this, and I think he blended it perfectly.
I think watching it a second time, I think a lot of I think I feel very similar to how I did the first time, but I actually think it got a little better for me. I think a lot of the problems I had with the probably first half of the movie, which were very minor to begin with, I think definitely alleviated a lot of it. Just knowing what I was in for, knowing some background information, allowing me to focus on some of the smaller details in the plot, picking up on some of the dialogue that I didn't quite pick up on the first time seeing it. And I think it definitely improved a little bit in my book for seeing it again. But yeah, the movie as a whole, like we said on our first review, it's just a cinematic experience, and we heard it all leading up to this movie. See it on the biggest screen possible. Don't stream it. Go to the theater. And
you need this in the theater. You cannot see this at home.
I think people throw that out a lot for movies. Like, oh, Venom, see it on the biggest screen possible. This actually deserves for that to be.
They should start make IMAX more like as more of a thing to do. They should just start making movies only for IMAX. Like a movie like Dune should only be in IMAX. Like you shouldn't put Venom in IMAX. You know what I mean?
I honestly don't hate that. They'll never do that because they're just making so much money. But yeah, I like that.
Explaining the aspect ratios to Teddy before. It's like,
you almost ruined the movie.
Like, I don't think I've ever been to IMAX. I'm like, Ted, I've been to multiple IMAX movies with you. He's like, but like, what's the big difference? And the trailers that played before in IMAX, I'm like, well, you see how it got bigger? Now you see the aspect ratio change? Like, that's what you guys meant?
He ruined the movie for me.
Did he really?
Well, he almost did.
Did you notice it at all?
Yeah, I did. That's all.
Really?
So every time the screen got bigger, I looked at it.
That's funny.
And then when it got smaller, I was like, damn it.
It's definitely become a gimmick because now even our Deer Park Theater changed their RPX to an IMAX, and all they did was change the name.
What's RPX?
It's like the same thing. It's all just a gimmick. It's just really loud. Okay, let's get into the movie.
No.
I thought you explained this.
No, I'm kidding. There's obviously some parts, you know, he had to pick and choose what he wanted to adapt fully from the book to the movie. There's a couple of things that we'll get into later of what I hope that he would have done, but he didn't do. But other than that, he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and I think I'm interested to hear your perspective on it. Being you liked it the first time, but I feel like you have maybe like it even a little bit more now.
Stronger opinion on it?
Yeah, after seeing it 5 times.
That's 5?
Yeah, since seeing it at TIFF.
Nice.
Because I watched it this morning. No, it's definitely improved for me, and I think at first I was, there were no surprises for me. It was more so just seeing what he had to leave out in order to tell this story. And I definitely think it would have benefited, and I think audiences still would have came out, man, because it is making a lot of money. From another 15 minutes, just get more information into these characters. Because it is like a tight 2 hours and 20 minutes. The more I watch it, the shorter it feels. It's like, we're getting to this scene already?
When I was watching it in IMAX, I'm like, oh my God, this is almost over.
Yeah.
I felt like we just sat down. I obviously, like during TIFF and seeing having such a long week before that, it definitely felt a little longer there. But the second time, it flew by. I was actually really surprised.
I didn't. I was not ready for where it ended. When we got halfway through, I'm like, wow, we got a long time left to go.
No, yeah, by the time it gets to that ending, and that's been a criticism from people that it does have a non-ending.
Yeah.
But that's also, I'm so excited for part 2 now at this point.
I'll tell you what.
Knowing what's coming with the desert. Like when she says, this is truly the beginning, it's a cliche line. But it's true, dude. Like, part 2 is going to be more psychedelic, focusing more on what's happening in the desert and the magic there. So the non-ending doesn't really bother me as much.
He set himself up for a nice bag.
I think
he made it so they have to make a part 2.
Yeah. I know, no, he put the pressure on them with Dune Part 1 at the beginning and then that ending.
Yeah, and I think the 2 scenes that really I appreciated more and I liked a ton more that really helped the movie for me the second time going was the scene in Descent. The first time we saw it, and I think I've heard people talk about this sometimes. I really couldn't get, some of the dialogue is a little mumbled, I found. And the second time watching it, I was able to pick up on a lot of that. And I think that scene resonated a lot more with me between those two characters, especially for Paul, because on the original review, Paul wasn't a problem for me, but I would have liked more out of Paul. But I think seeing that scene again, I think established that character in my eyes a little bit better, and it was a lot stronger. And that ending scene where I think I got a different view on it this time around, because it did kind of have that sense of hope and anticipation for the next one. I think it left off at a great point where I think when we compared it to like Lord of the Rings and saying all the differences between the two massive epics, I felt Lord of the Rings had more of a sense of hope surrounding it, where this is more doom and gloom. But I think that scene, watching it again, I got a little bit of that like hope and kind of like things are about to change and get better for these characters going into part 2. It might not happen because you guys know what happens, but I think that last scene with the lighting and getting the landscape, having one of the Fremen riding the sandworm, I thought that was just awesome and a great way to cut it and bridge the gap into the part 2.
There's one scene I think Paul's character could have been done a lot better. The one scene, the box scene in the book, Paul makes a huge jump mentally in that scene. And this scene in the movie, it just like came and went. It wasn't what I expected it was going to be from the book. In the book, it made it seem like there was like 7 witches in there. Or not witches, but the...
No, they are witches.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah.
The Baron does call them witches, right?
Yeah, his mentat.
Yeah.
But mentally, it just seems like Paul never really got to where he... It didn't seem like he got to where he was at the end of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it just he got to where he was without doing everything he had to do.
Well, I think it's like they could have done a better job of establishing the past relationships between all these characters, because they're people who have spent like so much time together. These people are his family. The advisors, the teachers, Duncan Idaho, Gurney Halleck.
Yeah, in the book, Duncan Idaho is pretty much is like his dad. Like, he loves him just as much as his dad, and we barely see that in the movie.
Yeah, but
so his death didn't really hit that hard for me.
No, I think that relationship was the best part. I think Duncan and Paul's relationship
I totally
was
disagree.
strong.
Really?
I don't think there was anything with Gurney. And from what I hear, that is another strong relationship, and I don't think they conveyed that at all.
But they just, every time it's just like...
All you need is a My Boy from Jason Momoa to establish that these guys have been boys forever.
Yeah, but show us like what they do together. Like, I'm pretty sure, isn't Duncan like his trainer too?
No, he is,
like,
and they mentioned Gurney mentions
training?
with Duncan off-world that now he's going to be the weapons master. Right. But I think the love is there. You felt like this sense of great respect between Duke Leto and his advisors and the people that work under him, and also between Paul and these people. Like there's a true love there, and I think there definitely could have been more for the relationship between Paul and his father, but that's kind of how it is in the books. A lot of the book is from Paul's perspective with Lady Jessica, so even when they are on Caladan and on Arrakis, Duke Leto's an important man. He's got a lot on his fucking plate, so he doesn't have, he has to kind of figure out time to balance all of this, and I think that was the pressure of all of it was there through Oscar Isaac's performance. And it was refreshing to see like a loving relationship between men that way, between father and son, and between Momoa and Paul. It was like his cool older brother.
Yeah, it was nice that his father wasn't pushing Paul to take his throne. He says it to him, and that scene was emotional, where if you don't want the throne, like, you stole my son.
The criticism that the movie's emotionless, I can't disagree with that more.
Right.
Like, yeah, you could have put more meat on the story, but I think that there's a ton of emotion with the scenes that we did get.
Well, I think that, like you said, the extra 15, 20 minutes would have benefited, and I think primarily allocate that time to maybe just establishing Paul a little bit more and like kind of setting up his hero arc a little bit better, because I didn't really get the sense that, like, I don't think he was established enough to be like the conflict that's within him. I feel like it was more just him going about and reacting to these events having around, rather than having a prior kind of struggle, except for that one scene with his father when they talk about it. But I don't think that was necessarily enough to basically set him up for the entire next 2 parts of this movie, or the remaining part 1 and then part 2. But and like you said, I think maybe establishing that relationship between him and his father a little bit more, just so when that happens to their house and he dies, it's a little bit more impactful. I think I was talking to a couple of my friends yesterday about the movie, and they were comparing it to like Game of Thrones in the sense. And I do think there are a lot of similarities, but if you could compare maybe that aspect of Ned dying and how that impacted audiences versus this, and like how the audience was just like full team fuck Lannister, rooting for Robb, the way to go. I don't have that emotion or that kind of feeling with this story. Obviously, because they're the bad guys and we're rooting for Paul, we want them to get revenge, but it wasn't as like visceral as an audience member. I wasn't angry when that happens.
They built up to Duke Leto's death, though. With Ned's death was just a complete curveball.
Right.
Like,
I'm just saying it's still very different. But I'm just saying like the emotions it elicited for me were just completely different in terms of like when that happened, I wanted Robb to like literally rip apart Tywin.
Right. But I think what like Teddy's point is that it is more foreshadowed. Mm-hmm. Like you understand that Paul is eventually going to be.
No, that wasn't a shock at all.
Yeah.
But
and I think with Paul's character, it's like no mistake that he is so kind of cold in his personality, because when they talk about the breeding programs and crossing royal bloodlines, he is a freak, and he's a little freaked out by it. He doesn't know what he is. That's why in the scene in the tent when Jessica's like, you know who you are, he's like, do I? Because I'm seeing all these visions of different versions of my life. Is this what I've been training for my entire life? Because he's just been trained to be a killer, if we're being just making it black and white.
Yeah,
like he's trained in every single way in the known universe to kill someone. So where does that lie? Where does that path lie ahead? It means he's going to be doing a lot of fucking killing. And so when he sees that vision of having the Holy War and he has that sort of mental breakdown, is this my destiny? So I think that the scene in the tent does a lot for Paul's character. Like you said, it's definitely better with closed captions.
Yes. But even before that, like leading up to that moment, I don't think like he's trained, like you just said, he's trained his whole life to be the killer and all this and the ways of the Bene Gesserit, and he's a freak. I didn't get that at all in the beginning. Not until he made that clear in the tent, and then he tells, like, obviously through dialogue. But I wish we could have got a little bit more of a sense of that leading up to that moment, and not necessarily rely all on that moment to give you the most important aspects of Paul's character moving forward.
Yeah, like a really important
so
scene.
much to get into.
I know, yeah.
Because you have to
do
that, establish the world, establish the conflict, the Harkonnens, Arrakis, the Fremen. It really is an impossible task, and that's why, like, I think,
realistically, you had like an hour to get all those backstories established, and then move on with the story.
And that's why I think it's just like. What he was able to do and do it this well is truly remarkable. And I think Villeneuve has been, talked about this week, and he deserves all the praise that he's been getting, because not only was he able to do such a good job of trying to get all this done in a 2.5 hour window, for it to come out as good as it did, and just the absolute massive scale and scope of this film is just absolutely breathtaking. And that still was, even seeing it again, I think I even enjoyed it more. Just the visuals and mixed with that score, it all blends together so perfectly, and I still think it's a technical masterpiece, and in every sense. And like, even the complaints I do have are very minor. It's just easier to talk about some of the complaints, so it might seem like I was poo-pooing on it a little bit more than I actually feel, but I still think everything just blended together so well. And yeah, I definitely can't wait to see it again on the biggest screen possible. I need to go bigger. Is there anything bigger than IMAX?
Cowboy Stadium.
Watch that Jerry World?
That's the biggest screen, I think, in the world.
The way he's able to show you the scale of his scenes is ridiculous. Like, the way he focuses on the characters and shows like what's around them and what they're looking at makes it feel like it's so real. All of his scenes, all of his landscapes, this place exists. I think it's there. I think they went somewhere and filmed it.
Oh, it wasn't CGI. Those worms were real.
Yeah, they were. The worms were fantastic too. I didn't realize how big they were in the book. Like, they say they're big, but this film makes it look like how big they really are.
I love when filmmakers
like world eaters
are able to like capture like a wasteland, pretty much desert, and just make it look like the most beautiful thing in the world. I think, would you say Guillermo del Toro said it was like an ocean, and it really is. Just those overhead shots of it going out, it just looks like waves of the sand flowing. It was literally just breathtaking.
Even the hand-to-hand combat with the shields looked fucking sick.
Those scenes were so well shot. I think even that first training scene between Paul and Gurney, the way that it's very stiff because they're just looking for an opening. And that's one of those sci-fi things that's you can't explain what the Holtzman shield is.
Exactly.
They go into detail in the books that the slow blade penetrates the knife, but I think it just visually it looks so pleasing that you don't care how it's really working. You get it. It's a shield. It's a force field. So all those moments, I think, between the Atreides troops, the Sardaukar, when they're using the shields and fighting, were really well done. Just going back to the desert, the look of the desert, you see why the Fremen have such reverence for it, that it has this sort of religious takeover of the whole people living there because of the giant sandworms and because of the spice and because of the effects of the spice. And they're going to get into that more in part 2, how the Fremen use the spice for way more reasons than the other people do in the known universe. You know, it's like a part of their daily lives, not just the psychedelic reactions.
You got to think what you said earlier about Duke Leto, with like how much he has on his plate. He just got handed the most valuable asset in the galaxy, and he has to protect it and pretty much use it for himself. But they destroyed everything that they used to collect. Like, you know, I think he knew that he was dying when he went there.
Yeah, I think that's why it is a cautionary tale. It's like this guy who's done so well on his home planet. He's the 1% of the 1%, royalty, absolute power, and then he's given even more power.
Yeah.
And it is a trap, and he tells Paul, he's like, this is a suicide trap. Yeah, it is Ned Stark. But I think in this, it's like if we can pull out of this, he's more like almost Tywin Lannister. It's like establishing a dynasty. If this works out for us, then we'll be stronger than ever. And that's good because we're good people, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like absolute power is okay if you're good, right? Right.
But yeah, you could just tell all the reference. Like if you didn't know there was a book, you'd be like, oh, that's kind of like Game of Thrones and Star Wars. Kind of ripped it off.
Yeah, but this is ripping off Star Wars, right?
Yeah, but it's so like just seeing. I think like it made this way. I think it makes it so much more evident, like just how it inspired future works, Dune.
Oh yeah,
Frank Herbert's
definitely.
writing and the world he built. So,
and they say the subsequent novels really inspired Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
and just the politics, man. When you have the Bene Gesserit talking to Jessica about producing the Kwisatz Haderach, and that scene is kind of like
You practicing that?
I was for a long time. That's like a lesson. No, not a lesson. That's a warning for Jessica. Like we should have came here and just killed you and your son for doing this, for training him in the weirding way. But let's see what you got here, because he might be the chosen one.
That scene with Rebecca Ferguson and Chalamet was a powerful scene too. When the witch leaves and he pretty much confronts his mom because he heard what happened. She's like, "Yeah, I did." So
yeah, I think it's there too, where it's like she's pronouncing him as the one, as the chosen one, and it's dark and it's raining and it's depressing. She's like, some believe he's already here, and then you get that shot of Paul, and he doesn't look like a savior. He looks like someone who's conflicted and lost.
He may have not been a savior.
Very purposefully shot in that dark atmosphere.
But he may have not been. She
fucking nepotism.
In her head, yeah, like she thinks he is, but he very well may have not been. I think she's pushing him. She's pushing him to be that one. She even says, like, the path, like even the witch says, the path is laid. Like everyone knows, like he's gonna step up or he's gonna die.
No, 100%. But they say like we have other candidates. They say that our success is measured in centuries. That if this doesn't work out, well, she tells him, like, good luck, human. I hope you live. Mm-hmm. Like, if it works out for you, then, yeah, we'll be there to pull your strings. And if it doesn't work out, then we have another puppet ready. But it's kind of, once again, it's the cautionary tale when you're a fanatic. When you are Lady Jessica, who believes so devoutly in the Bene Gesserit, this is what happens. You know, you lead your son down this path. You still love your son, but he is something else. He is this heir to this throne of power that is the Bene Gesserit. So it's like you see the confliction with her character as well, where she breaks down at moments, where she's unsure of what she's doing, where she's afraid of losing her loved ones. And that's the cautionary tale of dedicating yourself to something like this.
Well, I think that character is the clear standout, and Rebecca Ferguson's performance is the best in the movie. But Lady Jessica, I mean, she has so much going for her and that character. Like you said, how we talked about how she is training Paul in the way, and just everything surrounding the Bene Gesserit is just so intriguing. And obviously her relationship with Duke Leto and her son, it's just really the driving force behind a lot of the emotion of the film. Even like the scene she shares when she's picking out the housekeeper, and her use of the sign language and using the voice, and her capability as not only a fighter but just a survivor as well. Like, there's so much, I think, more to that character than we saw, but like it's impossible to fully flesh into her, especially when you're trying to do so many more things. But I think they still did a fantastic job. But as a viewer, I'm still intrigued to just know more about her. Why, her time at the Bene Gesserit, what went into her decision making and having a son instead of a daughter, and kind of going on her own path and grooming Paul and all these other things. So I'm just fascinated by that character.
I forgot she's able to choose whether she wants a boy or a girl, right?
Yeah, that's one of their powers.
Yeah, and she chose to have a boy for Leto.
Yeah, and now we see in the movie that Paul sees that she's going to have another baby. So that's going to be, obviously all of Paul's visions don't come true as he sees them. But we'll see who's casted as the baby.
So was Brolin's part long enough to win Best Supporting Role? I loved every scene he was in. He's so powerful.
I think he's a good actor, but he was just generic military guy. And that character in the book is definitely a military grunt.
Yeah.
But he's fat and he's jolly and he sings and he quotes the Bible. We got some Bible quotes.
Would you have wanted more from Duncan?
I think Duncan was.
No, I think Duncan was perfect.
Behind Lady Jessica, I think he was like my second favorite character. Gurney, I think, like you said, he's just like military curmudgeon. After like the fourth time of him like trying to kill somebody for like looking at Duke.
I know, yeah.
I'm like, all right, we get it. I am smiling.
Like Patrick Stewart played that character in the first one. And once again, he's not very similar in his physical build to the character in the novels. But I think he was a bit softer, and you can see why Paul took a liking to him more so than the other advisors. But here it does feel like that relationship, and maybe that was a good thing. You get that from Duncan and Paul. So Duncan's sacrifice reminded me of Barris and Selmy, reminded me of Boromir in Lord of the Rings. It's one of those great scenes where you think the character's dead and he comes back to life.
When he gets back up, I was so I'm like, let's fucking go.
It was amazing.
I'm pissed though we never get to see him have a showdown with Dave Bautista's character.
Yeah, I thought they were going to give us that.
Yeah.
Just based on the trailers. But his performance, man, I think he's definitely a guy who's improving every time you see him in a new movie. And this is the best he's ever been. Yes. He was so charismatic. He had $1 million smile. He was really enjoying the time.
Well, even the character of Duncan Idaho, I like so much just because, like...
His name?
Yes.
Yeah,
but he might not have, like, once I heard the name, I knew he would be my favorite. But, like, all right, so he's not, like, doesn't have too much screen time, but the time he does have is just filled with so much, like,
energy
substance
and life.
And, like... That relationship with Paul established right away. Just the type of person he is, the respect he has for the Fremen, the way he like ingratiated himself with the society in a way where he gained their trust and vice versa, where he's able to set up that meeting. I think there's just a lot of like layers to what we got with that character, even if not that many scenes. So like even when he respects their fighting styles and how. Like he talks about the closest he ever came to being killed, or who are the Emperor's mercenaries?
Oh, the Sardaukar.
Him saying it's like you cross swords with a Sardaukar, like and then he just goes on to wax like 10 of them.
I know was that scene when he first sees them. He just kills 5 of them.
Yeah.
And then he's like, if you've crossed swords with them because you can easily kill them.
So imagine what he does to just regular soldiers.
I know, yeah. But that's why it's this is just me nerding out. Lady Jessica, none of them can touch her. That's why it's so funny. As cool as Gurney and Duncan are, they would get smoked by Lady Jessica. At the end, when Stilgar's like, the woman's not trained. Yeah. And then she disarms him in 3 seconds. And then everyone's like, maybe she should be leading us.
Her son just runs up a hill.
Yeah. She's quick, dude.
It's like, look how fast I
am. But Paul being that good with a sword, you don't see it. You don't see him training. You only see that one scene with Gurney, but I think
a Rocky montage.
I needed more from Paul. I mean, training a little bit. I needed a Rocky montage.
But for us, because we've read, you reading half of the book, we know that he's been trained,
right?
So we know it. So you're thinking from like the perspective of someone who is unfamiliar, and I'm curious about that too. Like, is there enough there for some of these moments? Like one character in particular who it comes off as so cliche because you can't get into why Wellington UA is going to betray House Atreides. So it just seems like, they have my wife, they tear her apart like a doll, and then he's killed, and then he's disposed of. That emotional weight is there in the novel, but there are things that you just, like, how much time can you actually give that character?
Yeah. UA in the book is... He's around the family a lot, so you definitely do feel that betrayal a lot more from reading the book.
And he's also, like, stirring the pot a bit. He's pushing people off of his scent. He's pushing people towards other people. He's sowing some distrust between the house, most notably with Lady Jessica.
I think while I was reading the book, I think I was texting you a bunch of times saying this guy UA is a scumbag.
Right, yeah. And you see it in the scene when he checks his vitals for the first time and he tells him in Chinese, to be wary of your mother and the Bene Gesserit. There are hints. There are like a lot of hints to the novel, and like I said, it's kind of like it's just a triumph that the movie exists this well, because I think a lot of people are going into it and saying this feels like a fully realized world. If they haven't read the books, they're saying this is like a cool story. What is this based on? And you can tell people oh, there's a better version. You can get more in depth with this.
That's what he did so well, was making it so people who haven't read the book are pretty much caught up to speed and understand everything that's going on.
For me, I was
not everything, but
I was playing a little catch up in the first time, but that's why I said the second time, when you pick up on a little bit smaller details of the world and just certain lines that you might have missed, or just certain like little things that I think with the movie trying to do so much within a restricted time, every word really does make a huge difference. Even things like when they're in the what is it? I guess what would you even call that? Like the hideout they were in. Like the botany going on.
Oh, the
sand thing?
Yeah.
Right. It was one of the centers that they were trying to unlock the water.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
the research centers or something like that.
Like that kind of went over my head the first time I saw it, and the second time, like, oh, that's just an interesting little nugget about this world that, there was potential for this planet to be something greater. And like you said, that like makes more sense that why'd they keep the palm trees going. Because of that hope, and what the Fremen actually want, and what the oppressors in the outside world are subjugating them to. Maybe not directly in terms of imprisoning them, but like basically holding that planet hostage in a way where they can't realize the full potential because of the value of the spice to the other planets. So like just little things like that, like I can take and just kind of connect so many different dots of the world and just build it from like in my own head, which I enjoy doing.
And I think there are things, like I said, you have to cut some things. You can't go into too much detail in all of these areas. But that's one area where I wish they would have given us more, because the rarity of water, the water to the Fremen is as valuable to them as spice is to the rest of the galaxy. So in a scene that's humorous, I think, to audience members, is when Stilgar spits during their meeting. And it is funny, because you're like, why is he spitting? And in the books, it's because water, like if you wipe your brow, the sweat off your brow, and throw it on the sand, you'll get smacked in the face, because it's that valuable. You need every last drop. You have the tents that recycle your sweat and tears.
Yeah, I like how they showed that with the mouse, who wipes the sweat off his ears and then licks it up. Like just little things like that, just showing the what the life on this planet has to do, even if it's a small mouse or just humans.
Yeah, and you see how Paul likes that mouse. So keep that in mind for part 2.
Those suits look phenomenal.
The still suits?
Yeah, all their suits, the armor for the I can't say it. I say
Sardaukar?
Sardaukar. The armor for the Sardaukar.
The bad guys are dressed in white.
Yeah,
that's new. They just look cool.
I did love like the evil empire look that they had, like that when Baron was talking to everyone.
Yeah, I think he had like a Vader type presence in this movie.
Yeah, it looked like him.
Even in
mask.
Did you like Baron? No, he did. You know what? The more I watch it, the more I'm like he's awesome in the role. His mentat, Peter de Vries, I think his name is, the character's name. He's just kind of standing there with his arms crossed. Dave Bautista, he's a frightening presence, and he's going to have more to do in part 2. He returns, obviously. The Baron at the end of the movie sent him back to the planet, but we could have gotten more out of those villains. Those scenes were good though. The scenes that we got with them.
I did think the Baron was going to look like Thanos for some reason. I don't know why. he looked like Jabba the Hutt.
I don't know why, but Gurney sounded like that. That was weird. That was like a what if situation going on there. But one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I thought Charlotte Rampling as the Reverend Mother was excellent in every scene she was in. She perfectly captured the leadership role of this dark and shadowy political organization when she dismisses the pet that they have, and she says, he understands my language. the voice, the visual, the sound design there for the voice was horrifying.
Even the sound design with that, when they mute the room, I thought was excellent.
Yeah.
And when they use the voice, that first scene at breakfast and then later on. And I think that helicopter scene too is one of my
one of the best scenes of the movie.
Yes.
I actually got scared in the helicopter scene.
Yeah, no, I always talk about it, dude. Can you trick the audience? And you see Paul in the beginning, he's struggling with the voice, and it's a do or die situation, and he manages to get out of it.
Like you assume Paul survives, but Lady Jessica, like,
yeah, you don't know.
That's another one that could just go at any time. And like everything with the pitch and the sound and like how they set up that plan. But even like the bad guys, how they're talking about like what like they never had a highborn before, like some dark shit like going on that you just wouldn't see in any like or hear or they wouldn't talk about in any other science fiction epic. And it's like, oh shit, like yeah, this is a dark world. And
yeah, the more I watch it,
can happen.
The massacre of House Atreides hits more and more. Because I keep thinking from the perspective of newcomers, so many of the good guys are just gone. It's like Oscar Isaac dead, Duncan Idaho dead, Liette Kynes, who I thought was another standout, Sharon Duncan Brewster. I thought she was great in that role. But they're just dead. A lot of the good guys are being picked off. Dude. But I just wanted to quick circle back to my point. I wish that the character of Kynes, as good as she was, and I thought she really was a standout, I wish they would have focused more on what she actually wants. Because once again, you see that confliction. She doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know much about House Atreides, and she's had such bad experiences as a member of the Fremen. And as somebody who is dedicated to the dream of turning Arrakis to a water planet, she just had bad experiences all around. So when she comes to the decision to help them, even though they are desperate and they are on the run, it shows so much about her character and her sacrifice. And they could have given us more. I know people were upset that they cut out the conversations that she has with Paul about the death of their fathers, because she is carrying on her father's dream. So they share that in common, where Paul feels like he wants to live up to the legacy that his father has built. But I did you guys like her performance? Because I thought she was good in her role.
I was just going to say, I take back what I said about Gurney. I think she wins. I think she could win Best Supporting Role.
The top three were Lady Jessica, Duncan, and Kynes for me.
Well, yeah, if you want to talk about I thought, like you said, I thought she was fantastic. But I do think a conversation like that would have benefited both characters, especially Paul. Like you said, just some of the omissions from Paul's character, understanding his mindset and better understanding the complications he's going to have on this journey, not only physical, but internal.
And it's important to know why the Fremen will believe in Paul as the Lisan al-Gaib, as this prophet from the outside world. You understand their desperation.
Yes.
Because they're living in these conditions and they've found successful ways to navigate the desert, Euro-stepping across it like Prime Ginobili, building all this incredible technology. But at the end of the day, as beautiful as they think the desert is, they want some oceans.
Yeah.
They want a beach day. Just not the sand. So Anakin, if he was dropped there, would just be in shambles. He wouldn't know what to do. But I think the best scene in the movie to me is the refinery rescue, or the spice reserve rescue, when she's giving them the tour, showing them how it's all done. The desert doesn't look
pleasing,
more beautiful in that scene. I mean, throughout the rest of the movie, that's the most beautiful the desert looks. And just the action sequence, man. A simple rescue mission. It was just so enthralling.
It was disastrous, though, and it definitely looked like it was disastrous. A lot of chaos going on.
Like an oil refinery spilling or something like that.
Well, that was huge. What happened to them was huge. Like in Leto's head, they just lost a spice collector. That's huge.
Right, and I wonder if it got through in that scene when he says, "Damn the spice, we need to save our men." You see the reaction Kynes has to that. That's a very important moment for those two characters, that they leave that lasting impression on Kynes so that she lends them that assistance. But I thought, just the epicness of that moment was, it gets better every time you watch it.
That's the skill right there, what he does with the scale.
And even with Paul,
they look so fucking tiny. Everything, they look so small and pathetic, the way they were running from the worm.
And I thought it was very well done, showing Paul in this following scene, reflecting on what he was actually seeing in that moment.
Incredible.
I thought that was really well done, because in the original scene, you see him look up, and there's just it's nothing.
Like, it's not visually pleasing.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell is happening here?
And then you put him back into his vision world, and you're like, oh wow. So there's definitely more at play here, and I think that's something that I enjoyed more this time around, seeing the flashbacks, hearing how he talks about them, and kind of picking up little clues within those flashback visions, or whatever, flash forwards, whatever you want to call them as well. I think the best shot of the movie was when Zendaya, when she's all in white on the desert, and the aspect ratio enlarges, and they just capture everything right there. Just a beautiful, beautiful shot. And when you talk about this movie, obviously everyone wants to talk about like awards and everything. I think it's hard not to see Denis Villeneuve for director, Greg Fraser cinematography, and Hans Zimmer in score. I think those three are pretty locked up, which is just fantastic.
That'd be so awesome to see Denis I mean, definitely Greg Fraser for cinematography.
Yeah.
But for Denis to direct a movie like
Roger
this, that was
Deakins
such a
fucking sitting in the theater. It's like, damn.
well. It's also
been
like
me.
people make this this lazy argument. You don't like Villeneuve, you like Roger Deakins, and it's like Roger Deakins has only shot 3 of his movies, and the guy's like on a 10 movie run right now. So let's be careful. He's definitely got a distinct visual style that carries from cinematographer to cinematographer. Not taking anything away from Deakins. He's obviously the
Sounds
GOAT.
like you hate him.
No, but to take away from Villeneuve, he's proven time and time again that
Yeah, no,
he's not
How much of
relying
that
on
is?
Deakins.
How much of that is?
It's a collaborative effort.
No, it's a collab,
Villeneuve.
but he's making sure he works with
It's his shot, though,
cinematographers.
right? Like,
All film is collaborative, but
Yeah.
when you're the director, you have final say in what the shot is going to be. You know, you're the one storyboarding the movie, but the cinematographer works the camera. So you're relying. It's like a head coach relying on an offensive coordinator.
But I think a lot of times too, people, if you look at like the Zendaya shot, beautiful shot.
music videos.
But people that's like, oh, look at this shot, like one perfect shot, and that's a huge part of it. But a lot of what people don't really focus on is how he filmed the action, right? How some of the camera pans and things like that, how he's able to capture some of the worlds, even if it's just a dialogue scene, just the way they're able to kind of tell the story in a visual aspect or capture everything that's going on surrounding these characters. And like you said, like some of your favorite action sequences, the way it was choreographed and shot, like that's just
Oh yeah, I mean the stealth move.
Yeah.
When the Sardaukar come down,
Oh my god!
when it looks like they're floating.
it's sound
don't
design
stop.
too. They need to win too, because like
Yeah.
it's so muted. That's weird to say. Like, oh, sound design was good in these scenes where you don't hear anything, but that's part of it too, where the contrasts and everything with Hans Zimmer's score, the big booming epicness of some certain parts, and you have parts like that where you can hear a pin drop,
But
and
it's
it's like this elegance coming down where you don't really hear anything, but you can hear a lot.
But like as a watcher, like when
That sounded super fucking pretentious.
as a viewer though, when
you don't
s-
hear, but you see.
when you see the
See
Sardaukar
with
come
your
down
ears.
and you're wondering like
You hear
where
the silence.
See the silence.
as a viewer though, when you see the Sardaukar come down and then you wonder how they all got in there without being detected, he's showing you how they got in there. Like you literally can't hear them when they come down. Their stealth is crazy.
And he's just a good filmmaker, man. And he's just one of my favorites. I love the way that he methodically builds scenes, like that first voice scene with Paul and Jessica when he's trying to find the pitch in his own head, and you can almost hear the breeze, and you see the breeze in the room. You get the shot of Duke Leto's father, of the little statue with him fighting the bulls, which is a reoccurring image throughout the movie. Playing with fire.
Bulls for
For sport. Yes. He takes his time, and people have commented on this movie is probably like one of his more fast-paced movies because of all the shit that you need to get to, but he still manages to keep that slow and methodical style of directing that I've fallen in love with throughout his filmography.
Right.
Each time you started feeling the movie was started to drag, you picked it back up real quick.
Yeah, like I
What a
said,
big
the
scene.
more I watch it, the quicker it gets for me.
Yeah.
And as far as like we talked about it, I think Rebecca Ferguson does have a good opportunity for supporting actress.
Dude, maybe. I hope they make the effort to push her.
You always get I think you got to get the one, especially when you
She's like the Obi
where
or Gandalf, Ian
yeah.
McKellen.
yeah. No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what she is to this franchise, I think, so far. You got to if you're going to get a best picture, director, sound design, cinematography, screenwriting, adapted screenplay, editing, I'm sure, sound design, score. Very rare that a movie gets all of that and not anything with acting. Where it's hard to imagine,
I was surprised how
especially director and best picture.
little Zendaya's role was. You think that was kind of ballsy? Like, given the time that we're in right now, where there could be a chance where you don't make a part 2.
It's ballsy because of how famous she is. So a lot of
Yeah.
people have been commenting on her TikTok or on TikTok and commenting on her Instagram. You were only in this movie for 5 minutes. You fooled me. You tricked me.
I loved it.
That's
But
hilarious.
her role was in part 2. You know, she's setting up.
I love
Right,
it.
for
but
part
the
2.
way that it all comes together at the end when he finally
Yes.
sees the vision and you put that
When
together.
he finally
Right.
sees her, when she takes off the mask and he
Right.
notices, I think that makes that moment so much better. Just those little flashes of seeing her and his visions and that mystique surrounding her. Like, why is he seeing this woman? What makes her so important? What does she have to do in this story? Little teases. Getting her at the end and then setting up for that part 2, I think it's just going to make that character so much better. It's
Absolutely.
done brilliantly because I think when you have someone like Zendaya and like I think maybe there could be some pressure to like, all right, I got to utilize her. I don't want to have this great asset. Like, why don't we? We could definitely do something with her, but to save that and spread it out and sprinkle little pieces in and kind of tease you a little with this character, only to kind of get more in part 2. It's
surprised.
Really well done.
I'm very surprised this wasn't a 3-hour plus movie.
I think it could have, like we said, another 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think
been...
with that 20 minutes, I think you could have built more on
Well,
Zendaya.
there's been a lot of images floating around the internet on some deleted scenes. The dinner scene, the famous dinner scene that everyone always talks about. So that would be awesome. But the Fremen, I thought the character of Jamis left such a lasting impression. Talking about Paul's visions where he's talking to him and he's talking about the desert and how everything has to coexist and you have to flow with it. And that's when he decides to let go of the wheel when he's flying the ornithopter. Those were really cool too. And then when he fights him at the end, so he's like giving him this chance to yield, thinking, oh, I'm going to have this long-lasting relationship with this guy because he's appearing in my visions as well. It's like, no, sometimes
you're killing him.
Yeah, no, it's about you killing Paul Atreides and becoming one of the Fremen. So, but their mysterious presence, like you said, it builds up that interest for part 2. It's like, why are they so powerful? How do they know how to build this technology? Why did Atreides risk everything for them? Yeah, that's the desert power that they're talking about. So you see the image at the end with the worm, and now we can say that Kynes, that's what she was trying to do as well.
Yeah.
So the Fremen, the presence of the Fremen, it was handled very well. Like the scene with when Leto meets with Stilgar, it's that simple meeting, just treating people like actual people.
Right.
How that can go a long way. But, just their like religious obsession with their arrival, the way that they worship the palm trees and they're looking up at them through the gate and they don't even care about heat stroke. It's that important to them. So we're going to get more into that, and you could see how Paul may be playing with fire here.
Yeah, and
like religious fanaticism.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous thing.
But I think that like last little duel, like you said, like just showcasing Paul, like his abilities, where like
and that fight,
they fight like demons. That's what Duncan said, and the way Paul was able to pretty handily just
dice him up.
Yeah, he's like, was he toying with
him?
Yeah. And he's like, no, Paul's never killed anyone. And kind of seeing that all play out in real time, I thought really, it might seem like maybe
well, it's like you
not
said,
the highest point to end off for some people, but I thought it was really, the more I think about it, I love the ending and kind of how it leads into a part 2.
It's a very Empire Strikes Back type ending. One-on-one fight, very emotional, and then it's over. What were you going to say, Ted?
I was going to say, like, that it was the slow build to Paul realizing that he's going to become a killer soon. And he gets his first kill right there.
Yeah, for a long time, he even asks his father in the beginning, let me go on the advance mission. And his dad's like, no. He's like, what? I've been training for this my entire life. So when you see him, he's training with the Weirding Way. The Weirding Way is by far the best fighting style in the known universe. So as good as the Fremen are, Paul and Jessica are just on a different level. So that's why but they're freaks. A lot went into this. They weren't just like, it wasn't just luck of the draw. They've talked about it. They've been manipulating bloodlines for thousands of years. So now you have like these two superhumans in the midst of all of these. People didn't even realize that there were millions of Fremen on this planet.
Yeah,
so
the number was what, like 50,000, I think, is what they say that the Baron estimated at.
Right.
But there's millions.
So now you have this like very explosive combination here, where if you have these two leading a whole army of demon fighters,
especially dude, the way they fight, that jungle warfare type is nuts. They hide in the sand.
Yeah,
they come out like zombies.
Well, that opening sequence when you're seeing the battle between the Harkonnens and the Fremen was awesome when they come out of the sand. People didn't like that the Emperor wasn't in the movie, but that's obviously a character I think we're going to
part 2, man.
Yeah, we're going to see him in part 2.
He set it all up, man. Hopefully it pans out and we can get to part 2.
Part 2, I think it's got to be 3 hours, right? Close to.
I think it should be. I mean, his recent comments talking about how it's going to be less talking and more action. But I also think it's going to be a bit more psychedelic and a bit weirder because there are going to be some new characters that are going to, I think, give people pause. But there are also going to be some new villains introduced as well that will excite people. I think the plans are going to come to light now. We're going to see how come the Baron is considered such a devious and skilled manipulator and conniver, and we'll see what happens in the desert with Paul.
I gotta read part 2.
Yeah, is there anything else that we should touch on? I mean, feel like we could do a whole second video.
Yeah.
Oh, a character like Thurfir Hawat. He's someone that I wanted more out of. I think that the position of Mentat is such a unique position in the Imperium that they're basically human computers, that they're trained for years and years and years to become these processing people that are able to make these calculations and develop strategies. And Hawat is the guy in the known universe. People fear him. The Harkonnens fear him. The Emperor fears him. Other Mentats fear him. So when he offers his resignation, that's supposed to be a big moment. He doesn't fuck up, and now he's distracted. And some of that comes from Yue. Yue is sowing some discord, behind the scenes. So he leaves some of these characters distracted. But for newcomers, I feel like that's just a guy there with an umbrella.
Yeah,
well, I think
saying things
in the book wasn't Yue at the time when they tried assassinating Paul? Wasn't Yue with? I'm pretty sure he was with Hawat and, like you said, distracting him.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not totally sure, but they left his fate open ended. So I think you can draw your own conclusions from that. The characters that you didn't see die. You know what they say: if there's not a body.
Yeah. So
there's definitely some interesting things coming. But like for part 2, if it comes out and it's this epic conclusion, it's hard for me to, like, you can't make up on some of the flaws of part 1. Like, you just never will. For me. And a lot of people are calling it a masterpiece, but I still think it's very good.
Some of the flaws aren't serious, though.
No, that's they're not serious. But like, you're never going to make up for Yue. You're not going to make up for, like, unless Thurfir has a really big role in part 2. I mean, obviously he's going to have some scenes and he's got a role to play, but
yeah, I was talking to my friend about it too. It's like everyone that didn't die on screen who should have, I'm counting as alive. Like, that's just how he's like, yeah, I think everyone who didn't die on screen is alive still. I think it's a good way to go into it, and it's kind of fun to see like who's back, who comes back, and if they did survive, how did they survive, and what role they have to play in part 2. So I think definitely there's so much to look forward to and so much intrigue leading into part 2. And like you said, Villeneuve said, I established everything I had to. Now for you, maybe that's not enough, but for some people I think it might be. And
no, I think for now it's enough.
Yeah,
I can't be one of these nitpicking on the Dune Reddit page, complaining about this and complaining about that.
Right, that's always going to happen. So like,
I want to be on the fun side. I see so many people enjoying it. I'm like, I don't want to be on the other side.
Exactly.
I want to be on the fun side.
Enjoy what you got.
Yeah, I want to enjoy it. I've watched it 5 times. Like I said, the more I watch it, the more I like it.
It's not like you're trying to force yourself to enjoy it. It's just to force yourself to not worry about the minor things that went wrong with it.
Right, like I'm trying to just take it for, it's a new Dune.
Right.
And it is so faithful, and it's clearly made out of so much love for the source material. How can you not just sit back and enjoy it? It's awesome.
It wasn't rushed. It wasn't like they rushed filming it just to get it out. They took their time.
I'll tell you what about the score, though. I wish some moments he could have laid off.
You hate Hans Zimmer.
I wish at times there was like when in some fighting scenes, I'm like, I don't need music here. Like at the end when there was no music between Paul and Jamis, that was awesome. And I think, but movies fall into that trap all the time. It's like, this is cool, so we got to play cool
try to make
music.
Yeah,
got it right. This is cool, right?
Yeah,
like a Dunkirk, tick tick tick. They're up against the clock. Do you understand that stupid audience member?
No, well, I hate hearing because it gives me anxiety. When people are against the clock and you hear it in the background.
I know, that's why it's annoying, but the movie gives me anxiety on its own. You know, it was a great scene, though, when...
I like the voices, the evil voices.
The Sardaukar?
The one you hear in the beginning, and then...
That shit scares me every time it comes on. I'm like, the scene when Leto tries to kill the Baron, I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
I felt very bad for Leto when he lets out that tear.
Yeah, because he dies thinking his whole family's fucking dead.
Right, and he's just, it's so pathetic. It's so emasculating.
Butt naked.
He also died thinking he took out the Baron. This guy's curled up in a ball on the ceiling.
Right, I feel bad, yeah. It's like, at least he died too, right?
Yeah.
Right, God?
No, dude, all the scenes
that was so disgusting when the Baron was in that tub of lard.
Dude, he's just eating.
He's just drinking.
The scenes where...
He's a nasty motherfucker, man.
The scenes when the city got attacked, seeing the shields get imploded, those are fucking sick.
Incredible,
I like the slow...
Yeah, the slow.
Like when it's like the shield is giving some resistance, or even when Duncan's fighting and
he blocks it.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah.
I love Duncan Idaho.
Duncan Idaho was a true hero.
He's the best.
You know who's great too
is woke up from a nap and casually just took out half an army.
You see the beetle in Paul's vision when he's talking to him the first time, and then you see him playing with it before he dies. That was a nice little detail that I didn't catch the first couple of times.
Even the mouse.
The scene the scene when he caught the
Hunter Seeker?
The Hunter Seeker, that was sick. He's hiding in the bush, like on the hologram.
Yeah, this guy Teddy whispers, "Good move." No, that was very tense. That was very tense. And I wonder if people were able. I keep wondering this: if people were able to catch some of these things. Like, why is he? What is this? Why is he not moving? But yeah, man, it was quite the experience. It's been quite the experience all weekend.
I gotta see it a second time.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys want to go back in IMAX?
I might go. I want to try Dolby.
Okay. No, yeah, people have been saying to go see it in Dolby as well.
So I'm gonna do Dolby next, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this again, or just throughout the weeks.
I'll tell you what.
So much.
My stomach cannot handle large popcorn.
I had a small, and I thought I was going to die.
I should have got a small. I wasn't ready for that. I ate way too much popcorn.
All right, guys, that is our Dune review. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. It's a complicated movie, a lot to get to. So maybe we'll do some more Dune reviews coming out.
I definitely would like to talk about it again, especially after seeing it. But it's just like, I think there's so much to touch upon. You can really go scene by scene and like pick it apart and kind of have something to talk about. Kind of like when we talked about Game of Thrones, like every scene there was something to discuss.
And each scene meant something to the movie too.
I think that's the way.
There was no wasted scenes.
That's what I say. Every scene meant something. Every scene led into another scene perfectly. But yeah, every scene tied into the next. Everything was so carefully crafted. Every word of dialogue. That's why I said like things I missed, like even a sentence or a word that I picked up this part changed a lot for me and gave me a different perspective on the characters involved in that scene and some of the world aspects. Like that can be like daunting for a lot of people because you can't miss anything, but on rewatch when you pick those things up and you realize just that like how carefully crafted it was, like we talked about, it's just a marvel. And obviously the complaints that some people have, it's trying to too much to establish or too much to fit in, but what he was able to fit in, I think, in the way that he did is just remarkable. And I don't think there's many filmmakers alive today that could have done this, completed the task the way he did. So,
you think Dune hits $1 billion?
No. But it's
Dune
about to cross 200 million.
If a lot of people watch on HBO Max and it builds steam that way, and especially if it does well in the box office in these times and kind of has a year, you would assume a couple of years just of discussion, and then maybe the casting starts to roll out, then you get some images and the hype builds again, and people who missed it, people who missed it this time around have it already accessible for them on HBO Max just to go back and watch and catch up for the second one. And the discussion, I think, will actually be even more than it was leading up to this one. Now that we got it, now that we know how good it is, now that we know these characters, I think part 2 has the potential to be absolutely massive.
We will see. We will see. It's definitely going to be, from a storytelling standpoint, quite the ride, because this story wraps up in an explosive way, and I'm excited to get back into part 2. Hopefully, I'm hoping by 2023. Like I said, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will be back later this week with more soup, more videos, more reviews, and more Dune. It's Dune season.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll spoiler discussion part 2 is coming. I have a feeling.
Yeah, we got to get Nash's perspective on it.
I want my perspective again.
You just gave 2 reviews.
It might change, but I can still go on. We can still talk about it. There's still so much to go for. But yeah, part 2. Stretch the views out a little. Old podcasting trick, huh? Why do something in one part that you can do in 2? That's what Warner Brothers decided as well.
And Twilight.
Damn, we were making some good points in that video. Hey guys, Aaron and Nerd Soup Monkey here. Before we end this video, I want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon supporters. What can I say about you guys that I haven't already said about myself? You are the most important part of the channel and the main reason we keep going strong. Like Beau says, you keep the lights on in the fridge so the fridge is full. Or something like that. So, from everyone here at Nerd Soup, I'd like to thank you guys for your continued support. If you're interested in joining the ranks of our Patreon supporters, head over to patreon.com/nerdsoup and check out the rewards we offer to our patrons. We recently dropped some new stickers for you guys to check out, or you could choose a tier that will allow you to select a movie, show, or video game for us to review. We've got a full slate of fan-suggested reviews coming your way, and we're really excited about the chance to review some of those movies and shows. We've also got t-shirts, mugs, behind-the-scenes videos showing how we bring our videos to life. And once again, thank you to all our Patreon pledgers who have been supporting us throughout the years. Without you, we wouldn't be able to convert all your pledges into cryptocurrency, so thank you from my future self for making us rich.